So this last weekend was the start of the NFL preseason, and we got a look behind the curtain of what's yet to come. We saw the Cowboys play. We saw all the teams play. We saw some good play, some bad play. But one of the things the introduction of the NFL season brings that you probably haven't thought about yet is Taylor Swift. Do you remember how sick you were of seeing Taylor Swift all last year in Kansas City Chiefs games, her and Travis Kelce? We're about ready to start seeing more Tay-Tay as time goes on, because she'll be attending the games and television will be showing her. There's Taylor. Hell, you've seen all the betting sites of how many times Taylor will be mentioned or shown on camera. We've had a several-month break, 8-month break, 6-month break, something like that, of Taylor Swift with NFL. It's about ready to ramp up. And when they show Taylor Swift, one of the things they'll talk about is what occurred recently in Vienna as a terrorist plot against Taylor Swift concert in Vienna last week is the latest indication that terror group Islamic State poses a growing threat to the United States and its interests and allies around the world. I want to talk about that in about 5 or 6 minutes, but my immediate comment about the Taylor Swift thing, one thing was done right there that wasn't done in Butler, Pennsylvania. See, the Secret Service let Donald Trump go on that stage, even though they knew there was a threat. Yet, security forces in Vienna, Taylor Swift's own security and the security administrations there, didn't let her go on stage when there's a threat. Think about the irony of that. Law enforcement let a former president walk on stage when they knew there was a potential threat in the area, yet law enforcement didn't allow Taylor Swift to go on stage in Vienna, Austria, when there was a perceived threat. I find that ironic. Find that very ironic. You got an opinion? 800-288-9227. The phone number, 800-288-WBAP. My name is Jeff. It's Westside Jeff. I'm in for Chris Krok. Chris is back tomorrow night. You can hit me up across social media at Westside Jeff. I'm on Facebook, on X, and Instagram. You can also hit me up on the phones, 800-288-9227. I just give you common sense opinion on current events. That's my story. Just a regular guy born and raised up in the state of Ohio, not a professional talk show host, didn't train to do this professionally, didn't grow up and want to be a talk show host all my life, just a regular guy that follows the news, watches the news, and regularly walks away going, that's interesting. And I find myself on a processor. I like to process things. Most nights when I get off work on my day job, I go home, take the 2 dogs I have out for a long walk, sometimes as short as 2 miles, as long as 7 miles. Yes, I'll do 7 miles walks with the dogs. After the first mile, they're fine. That first mile, they are anxious, excited, and they are terror. By the way, in a little bit, I want to talk about dog walking. I got tips for dog walkers. Pisses me off when I take my dogs for walks. The things that I see, the stupid things that people do. I got tips for you when you see dog walkers coming your way. If you've got one, add to the list. 800-288-9227, 800-288-WBAP. Just common sense opinion on current events. Common sense tonight, Trump and Elon Musk did an appearance on X. It crashed and burned as expected. Anytime you have an event of that significant magnitude, it can't handle the bandwidth and the traffic. And I'm seeing all over social media how it froze, it didn't work correctly, it was a struggle. And the conspiracy theories I've seen are nuts. No, it wasn't the Democrats taking over the web, all that good stuff. It's purely bandwidth. When you have that many people go online to one site, it's going to crash. It crashed tonight, and that's what happened. I saw a tweet a little while ago from a guy named Greg Price. Greg Price shared a video of a press kind of a appearance from Kamala Harris. And the question that was asked of her is, when you become president, would you be committed to close the immigration detention centers? Kamala Harris said, absolutely, on day one. On day one. Can't wait for random Kamala campaign staffer to tell us she doesn't think this anymore. That was according to Greg Price. Well, Governor Greg Abbott forwarded that, retweeted that, and said, to be clear, this means Kamala is for catch and release. Governor Abbott says it means that every illegal immigrant crossing the border will be processed by Border Patrol and let go. It's what Biden did. It's the biggest magnet for illegal immigration. Greg Abbott said Trump ended catch and release. He'll end it again. Back to my comment about Taylor Swift and ISIS is a real threat now. And the porous open border on the south continues to be a problem. I don't need to tell you that. You live here in Texas. You get it. You understand it. And it continues to be a problem across this country because we're letting people in that we don't know who we're letting in. This election concerns me. This election scares me. This election is a challenge. And I've said it many times before. If we had a really, really good Republican candidate, call it a Ronald Reagan-esque thinking person in the at the age of 45, if we could take Ronald Reagan, his policies, his charisma, his it factor at the age of 45, and fast forward to 2024 and make him the candidate, this election would be over. If we had a really good candidate, the election would be over right now. But unfortunately, Donald Trump can't help himself. Donald Trump can't get out of his own way. Donald Trump keeps going down that rabbit hole. Trump keeps biting. They keep throwing him softballs and he keeps swinging at them because he can't stay focused and on message. And that concerns me. I've had a couple callers tonight said the exact same thing. It just scares the bejesus out of me to think that we could lose this election. And if we do, I cannot forgive Donald Trump for what he's done in running this campaign. He's got to get back to policies. Ever since Kamala Harris was named candidate, we've seen groups like Disabled Voters for Harris, White Dudes for Harris, Crazy Cat Ladies for Harris. Ever since Kamala Harris vaulted into becoming the likely Democratic nominee for president a couple weeks ago, a groundswell of identity-based grassroots groups have sprung up online and to rally behind her. Nightly, they do phone calls and campaign fundraisers that are raising millions of dollars and securing hundreds of volunteers, drawing comparisons to the grassroots efforts that fueled former President Obama to victory in 2008. But in 2024, in an era when identity shapes so much of politics and the rise of the first black woman and first Asian American to be nominated for president by a major party is drawing more identity groups out of the woodwork. You see, that's what the Democrats are going to do. They're going to make this an election of identity, not an election of policies. They can't run on policies because the policies suck. They haven't worked. They've got to run an identity, and Trump is falling for it hook, line, and sinker. What we will see is an unprecedented diversity in the political pool by all kinds of groups who purposely want to use marginalized identity groups as leverage in this campaign in an unprecedented level. That's what we're seeing, and that's what we're going to continue to see. Former President Trump has pointedly courted black and Latino voters this year, but he continues to stick his foot in his mouth like he did 2 weeks ago at the black reporters press conference that he did, and I think it was Chicago. Stuck his foot in his mouth. He's got to get out of the way. He's got to stay in script. His people have told him, and they try to keep him there, but he can't. He can't do it, and that's concerning. You got an opinion on this? 800-288-9227, 800-288-WBAP. My name is Jeff. It's Westside Jeff, and for Chris Krok on News Talk 820 WBAP, and now on FM at 93.3. So within hours of President Biden announced he would not seek re-election, and he endorsed Kamala Harris as his replacement nominee, more than 44,000 black women and allies from across the country gathered online, raising over $1.5 million. Now, the template for that event, organized by a group called Win with Black Women, was repeated the next day by Win with Black Men, which organizers say brought 45,000 black men and raised $1.3 million. And we've seen this night after night with marginalized groups, with disabled voters for Harris, with white dudes for Harris, with crazy cat ladies for Harris, with dog owners who love Harris. You name it, they've done it. There have been identity politics. This is going to be an election that is going to be about identity politics. The best way for Harris and Walz to win is play identity politics. And they need to play on the concept of defining politics by identity. Black versus white, LGBTQ versus straight, immigrant versus resident, Jews versus Palestinians, Christians versus atheists. They're going to make it about that. And Donald Trump, if he bites, he's going to lose. He's going to lose. He's got to stay on script and talk about policies. He can't go after Kamala. I contend that an older white male like that cannot attack his opponent when she is non-white and a woman, because it's going to look like he's beating up on somebody other than an older white guy. It's identity politics. We saw some of that with Hillary Clinton versus Trump. Initially, there was, quit beating up on the woman, right? Identity politics plays a role in American politics. And with Trump exhaustion for those who don't like him, it's worse. My name is Jeff. It's Westside Jeff. That's my opinion. I want to hear your opinion by dialing 800-288-9227. That's 800-288-WBAP, like Monique from Fort Worth. Monique, thanks for listening and thanks for calling. I appreciate you calling WBAP. Monique, let me ask you this question then. And I love your enthusiasm. I love talking to you. If I hear what you're saying and I understand what you're saying, if that's correct, then why is it Kamala Harris right now is leading in a lot of polls I'm looking at Real Clear Politics, national average of many, many polls. She has a slight lead. Why is that if Trump is being Trump and she's ahead? How do you explain that? Monique, thank you for calling. I appreciate your call. I love your enthusiasm. I ask you to go out and tell everybody you know and your neighbors and your friends. Spread that enthusiasm, girlfriend. I understand why, my friend. I understand why. Thank you for listening to the show. I appreciate you being a part of it. I want to talk a little bit about what you just said and about polling and about election results, because I have some stunning information that'll surprise the hell out of you that applies to this scenario in about 4 minutes. Bottom of the hour, got to hit the news with Sean. I see Sean over there saying, come on, Jeff, let's go. Got the news. Got to hit stories on what's going on with Iran, as well as the military movement over towards to help Israel. That's coming up in about 3 minutes with Sean Allen. On the other side of that, I'll continue the conversation about polling and about election results and election integrity as it relates to the Obama campaign of 2012, because it applies to this. I'll explain that in about 6 minutes. My name's Jeff. It's Westside Jeff. I'm in for Chris Krok tonight on News Talk 820 WBAP and now on FM at 93.3. So the name is Jeff. It's Westside Jeff. And for Chris Krok, Chris is off tonight and back tomorrow night. You can connect with me at Westside Jeff across social media. We're talking about news of the day and all the stories. You just heard Sean Allen in the newsroom talking about the escalation of things going on in the Middle East. Lloyd Austin, Secretary of Defense, announced that he's asked the aircraft carrier group to speed up to get there, which is unusual for a Secretary of Defense to come out and say that. He had sent the USS Georgia USS Georgia, it's a guided missile submarine, to the region. The sub can carry up to 154 Tomahawk cruise missiles, which are used to strike land targets. He had also ordered the USS Abraham Lincoln Carrier Strike Group, which is carrying F-35C fighter jets, to accelerate its journey there. In other words, he said, hey, speed up, get there quicker. My question is, why is it the Americans are the only ones doing that? Where are the NATO countries? Where are our allies? Where is the rest of the world on what's going on in the Middle East? Why is it America is the only ones? The United States are the only ones involved in that, at least announced. There may be others I'm not aware of because it's not been announced. But why is it we're the world's police? Yes, we have interests over there. I get it and understand it. But I'm questioning our leadership. I'm questioning the Biden administration. I'm questioning what they're doing and why they're doing it. I'm questioning Kamala Harris out on the campaign trails, always talking about Palestinians and Hamas and the Jews. Listen, they've been fighting since I was born. When I was in my mommy's womb, that's been going on in the Middle East. It's been going on since before I was thought of. It's not going to end overnight. Listen, the campaign, the Harris campaign, is in it for one reason, and that is to win votes. They're trying to minimize their losses in Michigan and the Rust Belt, where quite a few folks reside in voting blocks that can help them lose the election. I have a problem with a candidate who is pandering to an election win. Listen, the role of any elected official is to represent the representatives, right? It's government of the people, by the people. It's not about what Harris wants to do. It's what Harris perceives and believes what the country wants. And she is so out of touch with what's going on. She is so out of touch with the constituents. And that's a problem that I have. And the national reporting media have become the fourth estate of the Democratic Party. They are not a reporting media. They are not the watchdogs of the government. They are not the watchdogs of the community. They're there as a public relations arm for the Democratic Party. That's what our national reporting media have turned to. This election's an important one. There's a lot of things driving it. If Donald Trump can stay on message, we just took a caller a moment ago, Monique, that said she wants Trump completely off message. I totally disagree with her. And Monique, if you're still listening, my thought is this on that. I didn't have the chance to respond to your comment, but my immediate thought on that is this. Trump won in 2016 because in 2016, at the time, Americans were ready for a non-politician to become a politician. They wanted somebody who was unpredictable to win the White House. They wanted someone who was not an insider in Washington to win the White House. They wanted somebody to, quote unquote, drain the swamp. They wanted somebody to shake things up. That's what the country wanted. That's what the country voted for, and that's what the country got. I contend that today, in August of 2024, the instability across the country, across the world, and across many regions is such that people's appetite for unpredictability isn't what it was in 2016. I contend that voters don't want that unpredictability. They don't want an outsider in Washington. They don't want a non-politician in a political position. They don't want a businessman running the country. They don't want that unpredictability. But he can win it if he stays on policy. He has to talk about Joe Biden's attack on fossil fuels has driven up gasoline prices and energy prices across the country and has been probably, I don't know the number, I'm guessing half, 50% of the cost of inflation. That's my guess. It's hard to equate that. I'm not an economist, but when energy costs go up, it impacts everything across the consumer spending spectrum. And the fact that gasoline prices are much higher than they were 3 and 4 years ago is a significant contributor to inflation. Trump has to talk about the border and border security, and he has to use what happened over the weekend with the Taylor Swift shows being canceled in Vienna, Austria, because of potential of a threat of terrorism by ISIS. And Trump has to make that argument to the American people that ISIS is a threat inside of America because of the open borders. He can't just talk about Lincoln Riley or all those folks, the one-offs that Fox News tells you were unsafe because of this murder. He has to make it a bigger issue than one murder. He has to make it a bigger issue by positioning it MS-13 is a problem. Fentanyl has been a problem, but he has to tie it back to September 11th. You know, I heard a great quote a few months ago, and it came from Dana Perino, I think it was, on Fox News. And she quoted somebody else and said, the further we get away from September 11th, the closer we are to September 10th. And the Taylor Swift shows being canceled because of ISIS threats and a pending attack of terrorism in Austria proves that. The further we get away from 9/11, the closer we are to 9/10. Meaning we're so far away from September 11th and the freedom that we experienced prior to that on September 10th, you and I put our heads in the pillow having no idea what was going to happen the next day on September 11th that dramatically changed the world forever. But we're so far away from it because of policies of this administration, we are less safe than ever before. And it's coming. It's a matter of time that something like that happens again, and it'll point right back to the policies of this administration. Donald Trump has to win the election by talking policies, energy independence, energy security, border control, border security, election integrity. He has to go down the list of things, of policies that improve lives of Americans. Small business friendly, get government off our backs, get government out of our lives, and just be there as a resource, not as a mandate. That's my opinion. My name is Jeff. It's Westside Jeff. And for Chris Krok, you have an opinion, you have a thought, I want to hear it at 800-288-9227, 800-288-WBAP. You can also hit me up across social media at Westside Jeff. My Trump story and my Obama story is this. Let me come back to the Obama story I mentioned a moment ago. And that is, I was born and raised in the state of Ohio. In 2012, Obama's first election, he won big. You remember the wave across this country? The outpouring for hopesy change and Obama mania in 2012. Part of it was the election of a first black president. But it was all about, in my opinion, it wasn't race, it wasn't color, it wasn't male or female. It was an issue of not what he was going to do, but how he made us feel. He didn't win the election because of skin color. He didn't win the election because he's a man. He didn't win the election because he's from the state of Chicago. I think Obama won because of the way he made voters feel. The emotional concept, the emotional attachment to his party, to his agenda, to his let's get on board and let's feel this together. It was a feeling. And that is what Kamala's trying to do. And it starts with their identity politics of driving home identity versus policy. Obama didn't win 2012 because of policy. He won because of how he made you feel. And voters in exit polls for years have said that. They didn't vote for him because of his skin color, because of man, because of the party, but how he made them feel. Hopesy change. That's what he did. That's what Trump's got to get back to. making Americans feel safe again, making Americans feel great again, making Americans feel wealthy again. That's what he's got to do. It's an emotional connection with the voter. It's very powerful. I'll explain a little more about it in 4 minutes, how Obama did it and what the exact outcome was. You may think it's a landslide, but when I tell you what I'm going to tell you, it's going to surprise the hell out of you, and I want you to apply it to this election in 2024. My name is Jeff. It's Westside Jeff in for Chris Krok on News Talk 820, WBAP, and now on FM at 93.3. Just a little while ago, Elon Musk and Donald Trump did a stint on X, formerly known as Twitter, and the site crashed. No surprise. One of the things Elon Musk said is in the webcast, he said, "I've not been very political before." Elon Musk goes on to say, "They try to paint me as a far right guy, which is absurd because I like to make electric vehicles. I supported Obama. I stood in line for 6 hours to shake Obama's hand. Historically, I was a moderate Democrat, but now I feel like we're at a critical juncture for this country. And for people out there in the moderate camp, I think you should support Donald Trump for president." That from Elon Musk tonight. Charlie Kirk quoted him and put that up on X, formerly known as Twitter. And Elon Musk retweeted it and said, "Yep." So interesting comment about Elon Musk. As he said, he was a lifelong Democrat and makes electric vehicles and voted for Obama and stood in line to shake his hand for a long time. He's a lifelong Democrat, but not now. I find it interesting when people talk about Trump. Let me remind you, Trump was a Democrat longer than he's been a Republican. He was a Democrat all his life. So I find it interesting. Why does the Democrats hate him? And back to Obama. I think I said Obama's election 2012. I'm going to go back to Obama's election 2008, his first election. Do you remember when Obama first was elected president in 2008? He ran against John McCain. And if you remember back, it seemed like he won by a landslide. I had to look it up during the break. My name is Jeff. It's Westside Jeff. I'm in for Chris Krok. Chris is back tomorrow night. Obama in 2008 won the general election with 52.9% of the popular vote, so 53 to 47. But that yielded him 365 of the 538 electoral votes. That was a big, big win, 365 electoral votes. Let me tell you something interesting about that election. I had to go back and look at it because I was in Ohio, born and raised up in Ohio, and so I was in Ohio at the time. And Ohio went towards Obama. I forget the exact numbers in Ohio, but it was pretty significant. So 180 or 90,000, just under 200,000 votes, if I remember right. I went back in 2008 at that time and looked afterwards to see, boy, I remember reading it and thinking, a couple 100,000 votes, that's massive. But then I start drilling down to see what that really looks like and apply it to all local elections, including this one right here in Texas. Again, 2008, Obama, I thought, was a landslide. He had carried Ohio by a couple 100,000 votes. So I went back and looked at it and saw the state of Ohio at the time had about 9,300 voting precincts. And at under 200,000 votes, Obama won in each precinct by an average of 18 votes. That's not a landslide. So I thought about it for a minute. Obama wins 2008 by an average of 18 votes per precinct in the state of Ohio. I went to the house I was living in. I went to the front door. I opened the front door, looked up and down the street, and see how many houses I could count. And it was 23. 23 houses I could count by standing out, walked out on my front porch, just off the porch, and stood and counted the number of houses. 23 homes. So Obama, on average, wins by 18 votes per precinct, and there's 23 houses in my immediate neighborhood. I don't know how big precincts are. I didn't go that deep. It occurred to me that if I'd gone to those 23 homes and knocked on all those doors, I almost guarantee you I could find 19 people who did not vote. 19. Now, if I could convince those 19 people within the earshot of my home that they could have gone out and voted in 2008 and voted for John McCain, and he had carried my precinct by just 19 votes in my immediate neighborhood, and if everyone listening to my voice in the state of Ohio at that time could have gone out and done the same in their precinct and picked up 19 votes in their district, in their precinct, John McCain would have won the Ohio election in 2008. And that was almost enough. It wasn't quite exact, but it was almost enough to sway the election. But if a couple other states could have done the same thing, it could have been a landslide in favor of McCain. What that taught me is this. Oh, by the way, I talked about 19 votes. Let me give you another number. What if I could have swayed 9? It could have been 19 new votes, but if I could have gotten 9 people in my immediate neighborhood who voted for Obama to have pulled the trigger for the Republican, John McCain, that would have swayed the election. What that means is an election in 2008, I thought that was a significant big win, a landslide win, came down to getting 9 votes, 9 people to vote, change their vote from one candidate to the other. This election, 2024, will be very similar. It could be a couple of votes. When you think your vote doesn't count, remember that story. My name's Jeff. It's Westside Jeff. In for Chris Krok. On the other top of the hour news, we got news coming up from Sean Allen in the newsroom with a story of what's going on in the Middle East and military preparedness over there with America getting involved. On the other side, that we'll continue to talk about how unsafe our country is tonight. And I'll explain it after the top of the hour news. But first, I want to tell you, when it comes to concerts, I love going to concerts. I've not seen this artist, Christopher Cross. He comes to the Majestic Theater on August 18th. It's coming up this week. Tickets are on sale now at Ticketmaster.com. You can text RIDE, R-I-D-E, to 1-800-288-9227 for your chance to win a pair of tickets. That's RIDE, R-I-D-E, to 800-288-9227. That's your chance to win Christopher Cross tickets. If you don't win them, you can go to Ticketmaster.com right now and buy them. Christopher Cross, he's coming to the Majestic Theater on August 18th. That's coming up this week. My name's Jeff. It's Westside Jeff again. Coming up top of the hour news with Sean Allen. On the other side of that, we'll continue a conversation about how unsafe and how unstable our world is. And I'll tell you more about what that looks like. My name's Jeff, Westside Jeff, and for Chris Krok on News Talk 820 WBAP and now on FM at 93.3.